Hello, my name is Joe, and welcome to my channel. Today I want to make a video for Rocket Summer. This is a booktube event created by Michael K. Vaughan, and it's where you spend the month of July reading. The goal is to read 4 science fiction novels. The first week would be any science fiction novel up to 1939. Week 2 is something from the 40s. Week 3 is something from the 50s. And week 4 is something from the 1960s. Now, this is potentially going to be my only video for Rocket Summer. I'm not fully participating in the event. I did read a book for week 1, and we're actually about to start week 3, so this video is a little late coming. But it's a book that I had been planning on reading. Many of the hosts hosting Rocket Summer have mentioned this book, so I figured, I'll go ahead and read it this month. I was planning on reading it for Halloween, but I read it for week 1 of Rocket Summer. And it is something that's considered by many to be the very first science fiction book, and it is Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. And I want to point out, this version that I read is the original 1818 version. Mary Shelley, in 1831, released I believe it was a slightly longer version. And actually, I have a copy. This should be the 1831 version, I think. Or it's the 1831 version with the 1818 chapters. Anyway, I have both. This is the one I wanted to read first. Maybe next year I'll reread Frankenstein, and I'll take a look at the 1831 version. I've heard that most people like this version better. Overall, I haven't had much contact with Frankenstein. I've never read it before. I have seen the 1931 Universal horror movie. I've also seen the Hammer horror films version with Christopher Lee as the monster and Peter Cushing as Dr. Frankenstein. But the one that I'm more familiar with is the 1931 with Boris Karloff as the monster. And I cannot remember the actor's name who plays Frankenstein. The book did take me a while to read. I mean, it took me kind of into week 2. I started it kind of late. It took me into week 2 to finish it. And just right now, I've mentioned this in other videos, I'm getting back into a movie kick, so it's just, I'm also busy in life, and it's just taking away time for me to read. As far as reading speed, I found this book very readable. It does start, the kind of the first thing that interested me about it was it is multi-layered. It begins and ends as an epistolary, written as, it's you're reading letters. So it's kind of this framework story that kind of jumps around in time. Then the middle section, it's we switch to the point of view of Dr. Frankenstein himself, and then in the very center, you do get a few chapters from the monster's perspective. So that's very cool. It jumps around in time. It's multi-layered. So if the kind of the epistolary format you don't really like, you find a little old-fashioned, don't worry. That's just the beginning and end. If you're reading it, the language itself, I found for an early 20th century or 20th century, an early 19th century novel, I found it very readable. I've mentioned before, I've read Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen earlier this year. That was another early 19th century novel. I had more trouble with her language than I do with Mary Shelley's. I found that I could read this my normal reading speed. I didn't have to slow down to understand the language. It was totally fine. I do sometimes have to slow down with Jane Austen. A lot of times when she's writing dialogue, I just get lost in the dialogue and the language that she's writing in. As much as I do like Jane Austen, I just have to slow down when I read. So I've mentioned the multi-layered aspect is very interesting. Another interesting aspect is it's very different from the 1931 movie, and the 1931 movie has a lot of aspects to it that are, I think, even if you've never seen the Boris Karloff movie, you already know it just from pop culture. You know the look of Boris Karloff's Frankenstein. You know that he's a kind of grunting, mute, kind of dumb And there's a great scene, the famous it's alive" scene from the movie is kind of ingrained in our collective consciousness. And those are all elements that are not present in the novel. The first aspect that I found striking was this mad scientist image that is present here. We have this, the cultural, the trope of the mad scientist. It's strongly present in the 1931 movie. It has its roots here. Obviously, it is a scientist creating this creation that becomes he sees it as a monster. But there's so in the 1931 movie, there's the famous scene where he puts him on the platform, raises him up into a tower, and there's struck by lightning. He's struck by lightning that to give life to the monster. In the lab, there's a lot of coils, there's electricity, there's Bunsen burners everywhere. And that's kind of this mad scientist image. We probably has earlier roots maybe in Metropolis, the silent film Metropolis. But that image of the mad scientist isn't present here. Frankenstein talks about going to school and discussing death and life with the two different professors, and he reads a lot about it. And then in the chapter where he creates the monster, there's no grave robbing to collect the parts. There's no assistant that's helping him. In the 1931 movie, I believe he's unnamed, but we know him culturally kind of as Igor. There's no Igor character. And when the monster, there's no description of how he creates the monster. And it's just, he somehow gives life to this being. It happens very quickly. He's immediately horrified, and he abandons it immediately. So that's very different than kind of our cultural memory or cultural knowledge of the story of Dr. Frankenstein. It's not that one is better than the other. It's just something that's very interesting to me, that it's how different it is. Another big difference is how eloquent and intelligent Frankenstein's creation is. Also, just the physical description. This picture here, he's described as very large. He's very strong. He's also very intelligent, but he has this long black stringy hair. So this image of the monster kind of is what I saw in my head when I was reading this. The monster is also, again, he can speak. He does learn to speak, and you find out how he learns to speak, and it displays just an incredible intelligence. So it makes it all the more shocking that Frankenstein abandons his creature, his creation, because he created something that has the capacity to easily understand the world. He learns. I won't kind of go into detail of how he learns to read, but he does it faster than he's observing this family. He's kind of borrowing books from him. He's teaching himself how to read and how to speak, and he does it faster than this foreign woman that's living with the family, who's also trying to learn to speak the language, the local language, and he does it faster than her. So the monster is extremely intelligent. And towards the middle and even the end of the book, the monster has these. The book ends with a wonderful monologue from the monster, and it's really great. Very different from Boris Karloff's version. Again, he's just grunting and kind of just a big dumb brute. Throughout the story, I mean, these videos they're never meant to be a deep dive critical review of books, but one theme that kind of just slapped me in the face, and it's something that instantly in my mind goes, yes, this is obviously a classic. I mean, not only is it a great read, and not only does it have some very frightening imagery, there's a great dream sequence where Frankenstein, he dreams that his cousin / girlfriend's face just decays and melts rapidly in front. Remind me of Raiders of the Lost Ark. No, but the theme that really hits me, that kind of hits me right in the face, is that we are responsible for our own problems. And if you examine your own life, if you examine an issue in your life or a problem in your own life, you can very often at least trace the causes of that, at least some of the causes, back to yourself. We create our own problems. And that is what happens in this. Frankenstein, he creates this creature. He immediately abandons it, shows it no love. And this creature that's very intelligent recognizes that, oh, I'm unloved. Humanity hates me, so I hate humanity. So he has this hatred that is created in him that he reflects back towards humanity. There's a great middle scene, not to spoil too much. I've never seen the movie Bride of Frankenstein, but Bride of Frankenstein does have its roots in the original Frankenstein novel. It's really great. And that also, the whole kind of Bride of Frankenstein aspect does add to Frankenstein's, or the monster's further rage against his creator and humanity as a whole. I highly recommend this book. It's excellent. It did take me a while to read, but it's not a difficult read by any means. If you're looking to get into classics, if you're looking to get into early science fiction, or even early horror, give this a read. It's excellent. It's great. I loved it. I think that's all I have to say for it for now. I mentioned probably not going to do another Rocket Summer video. If I do another one, I actually do have a book of Harlan Ellison short stories that I've been wanting to dive into. So maybe I'll pick out one short story. Hopefully one of them is written in the 1960s, so maybe I can do that for week 4. Harlan Ellison, if you're not aware, he wrote one of the best episodes of Star Trek, City on the Edge of Forever. Other than that, I'm gonna jump into Jane Austen in July and read a Jane Austen book next. Actually, I take that back. I'm finishing a Star Trek book currently, so we'll stay with science fiction, but it'll just be of the Star Trek variety. But that's all for now. I recommend Frankenstein. It's a great book. If you read it, I enjoyed the original 1818 text. It read like a fever dream. It was great. So yeah, it's a great book. That's all for now. Thank you.